Page one. Are you guys sharing or you guys want your own?
Is it recording?
Yeah, it's recording.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
It's not recording, I'm blaming you.
Okay, this is called page one right here, and he has page 2 and 3 over there.
Shalom Aleichem, Erev Tov, good evening. For those of you who the camera bothers in your face like me, you're welcome to come around. First and foremost, I just want to say a few thank yous. Thank you to everyone who braved the storm that I read about in the news that I was coming into. Ashrechem, I appreciate you being here tonight. Potchim Bichvod Achsanya, we always open in thanks to our host, congregation called Israel. Has always opened the doors for us to have shiurim here. It's not something we take for granted. I've asked before, I'm shamelessly plugging for congregation called Israel. It's my nephew's Bet HaKnesset. Please support CKI. The link to donate to their Kehillat is online, and it's the least we can do for giving us this venue tonight. So Tizkul Mitzvot, and thank you to Onen and Kira for always facilitating that. To my sister-in-law Shira and her husband Ariel, who happens to be my brother, thank you for all the refreshments tonight. Tizkul Mitzvot. And if I started saying thank you to everybody who I needed to say thank you to, I couldn't. I think that in this season, in this particular season, it's okay to say a thank you to Rabbi Yitzchak Shem Tov, who without him and Liba and Rav Tzvi Holt, we wouldn't have a Pesach for him already so many years in a row. So if your questions get answered, it's because of them, and if they're not answered fast enough, please bother them. Ashrechem Tizkul Mitzvot. And last but not least, to my wife, Eshet Chayim Nimtzam. The evolution of a trip. So this trip started. Let me share with you a story. The plan was, we started Shiviti New York, was about every 3 months we should be here on the ground giving a shiur, and the rest of the time we'll study on Zoom. And so we had this incredible Shabbaton together last year. I'm going to talk about it again because I want to do it again, and I need to talk to you about it if we want to do it again. But we had a Shabbaton like the highest of the high, I think, that we experienced together. Something that I mamash like that. And then our next 3-month mark, I came here. We had a small shiur in Staten Island on Har HaBayit. You guys remember that? Baruch Hashem, thank you to the Schofields for arranging that one. We had a shiur, and then right after that, Mori Harav Yaakov Peretz, Harein Kabbat Mishkavo, he passed away. In fact, Rabbanit Peretz's Askara was this weekend, 12 months. And my whole world turned upside down. And it's not something simple. I still haven't fully figured out life post Mori Harav. And that was a shakeup. It made me miss my 3-month mark. And then Baruch Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, good news. The next 3-month mark exactly was the birth of Yedidia in November. That's not Yedidia. That's too fast to be Yedidia in November. Yedidia is a cute one walking around in a stroller in somebody's arms. Right here. There you go. Yedidia was a gift from HaKadosh Baruch Hu in November of this last year. And then Abit and I were sitting around, and we figured we have to come back to New York because soon it's Purim, then it's Pesach, then it's Shavuot. Before you know it, it's another year. What's going to be with us? And then we started looking at tickets and dates and this and that. And Yair turns 2 on March 23rd, and you know what happens when kids turn 2. Then you have to buy them their own seat, and then the cost of coming to New York goes up. And we had a whole plan, and then HaKadosh Baruch Hu changed the plans, and we're here tonight. Baruch Hashem. In order to make here tonight happen, we had to bake matzot in my Kehillat a week early. So last Sunday, I spent the whole Sunday, baking matzot with the members of Kehillat Shaar HaShamayim. If you want, it's free. You just have to come to San Diego. We baked 1,300 matzot together this year. We don't sell our matzot at all. We could. People sell matzot for a lot of money, even the bad crunchy ones, but especially the soft ones. But for us, it's something we do as a kehillah. The people who bake take home matzot, and in our kehillah, we eat every single meal of the holiday together. So all of the days of Chag, we eat together as a community, like we do on every other holiday. And that's a lot of people to have matzot going around. So if you're invited to join us, some of you are taking me up seriously on that offer, and I look forward to celebrating with you in Yerushalayim. But if not in Yerushalayim, then in San Diego. And that turned into a trip of, well, if Hameni was going to be in New York tonight, one of my students from many, many years ago is getting married tomorrow night. I said, would you please do my wedding? So, okay, leaving behind my kids with Saba and Safta for one night, it's tough. 2 nights, I asked my parents, okay, 2 nights we can stay. The plan was to stay tomorrow night and then first thing in the morning go back. And then one of the members of my Kehillat, her daughter, should share much or not share much about?
It's public. It's all public.
Everything I'll tell you now is public information, and it's important for you to know. Why should you know? Because on Friday night when you say, Ohaveh Adonai Sinu Ra, those who love HaKadosh Baruch Hu must hate evil. This particular congregant of mine, she grew up in the Hasidic community of Borough Park. And about 15 years ago, she decided to do something crazy, like go to school and get a degree. And that was considered Yareg Val Yavo, so much so that her parents helped her husband throw her out of the house and take full custody of the children. And 15 years ago, her daughter, who she was nursing, 10 months old, was taken away from her. And she hasn't been in her life since. She's getting married on Wednesday night. And she's not invited to the wedding. But she decided she wants to be at her last daughter's wedding. And because all the rumors are that she's not religious and that no Jews ever would be like her, and that, she really thought it would be important for her Rabbi and Rabbanit to be at the wedding with her. And so on Wednesday night, we'll be going to a Hasidic wedding in Monsey that we may or may not get thrown out of. No hafganatiyut, we're not going there to make problems, but this girl, this lady, she wants to be by her daughter's wedding. It's her mizhinka, it's her last chance. And evil still exists in the world. You should know there are always two sides to every story. There's certainly another side to the story. But parental alienation is a horrible crime. It's a horrible thing. There are obviously very extreme cases. God forbid someone's parent is a serial killer. I don't know, they're a rapist, a murderer. I don't know, fine. For the most part, a child needs parents. Both their parents. And if those of you who raise children, you know 2 parents is not enough. You barely get by with 2 parents. You're supposed to have a whole village. It takes a village to raise a child. Most of us cut out the village already. We don't have the grandparents and the aunts and the uncles and the cousins, the brothers and the sisters. So we're 2 people trying to raise children. And that's why we're here 3 days. But if we're here 3 days, then that means the whole family came along. So Baruch Hashem, that's what we're doing here. And we're very, very excited to kick off this week here together. Shem Yishmo. In a shiur. And I'm very grateful for you being here. And if I'm telling you personal stories, let me embarrass my son Elchanan. Is he in the room?
I know.
Okay. My son Elchanan is the guy wearing the Jason Tatum baseball cap. It's baseball? That's what does Jason Tatum play? Basketball. I don't know either. But I know that my son, he wanted to fly with his Jason Tatum hat and his gold basketball necklace and he got his cast signed by a player in the San Diego Sharks. I found out that's a team that plays in San Diego. And we were having a conversation before we came here. We're going to be in Williamsburg and in Borough Park and in Monsey. And you have to respect neighborhoods when you go to those neighborhoods and how we talk and how we dress and what we speak. And when Elchanan was on the plane, he tells me, so wait, tonight's the wedding? I said, no. He said, what's tonight? I said, tonight's the class, the Shiviti class. I said, oh, you made me so happy. Because the Shiviti people, they see people's neshamot. They don't see the outside of their bodies. And I said, Baruch Hashem. Ashleinu matov chakenu. I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful that we have each other, that we have this group of people that really, it says, Adonai yirei lalevav. HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees the hearts, but we try our best. We're human beings. To see beyond what other people see and to see who people really are. And I think if you looked around this room and said, so what's the common denominator? It's the fact that we have each other and we have this type of limut Torah together and this connection together. And I'm very grateful to you for making that happen. If I'm on that note, can I ask, is there anyone here at an in-person class for the first time? Yeah? Can I get your names? I know you're Rav Yitzchak Shem-Tov's brother, but I'm assuming tell me your names.
Zachary.
Zachary and? Odelia. And? Jamie, I saw you RSVP today, right? Yes. Okay, that's you. And someone else?
Daniel Preston.
Oh, you are Daniel Preston. We spoke on the phone for both of them. What? Who?
There are a few more here.
Oh, a few more, right? I didn't see the hands. Okay, who else?
I'm
Renan. Naimon. Jess. Welcome, Bucha Ba. And I got Daniel and Yaakov, who we've spoken before, but I think it's the first time in person. I think so too. So tonight, oh, shalom aleichem. For you, we left the door open. For you. We risked our lives in Brooklyn to leave the front door of the Beit HaKnesset open. So they tell a story about a kid who goes to school.
Wait, sure, the talking section's outside.
His mother decided she really wants him to get a Jewish education. So she signs him up for Jewish school. And he goes to Jewish school. And he comes home and says, what do you learn at school today? We learned the Passover story, the story of the exodus of the Jews leaving Egypt. Now, what do they tell you? Well, they tell us a story about these two IDF generals named Aaron and Moses. And these guys were next level. They were special forces. They led these units into Egypt. They saved the Jews. They brought their tanks. They brought some airplanes with them. And they reached the sea, but they couldn't cross the sea because it was too deep. So they rolled out some pontoon bridges, and they crossed over there. And the moment the Egyptians were on those bridges, they blew the bridges up, and the Egyptians drowned in the sea. And the mother's jaw drops to the ground. She's like, is that what they taught you at school? He's like, no, of course not. But you never believed the crazy stuff they told me at school. Sometimes when you hear the stories of Yetziat Mitzrayim and you're saying, so what am I supposed to do with the story? I hear the story. I'm not here to talk about historical accuracy of the Mikra. It's not my place right now to speak about that. But what am I walking away with? Paro in pajamas in the middle of the night. Like, what does that mean to me? This is a very important holiday, Pesach. It's so important that for 6 months, some people don't let you eat cookies in their house because, chas v'shalom, there may be crumbs of chametz inside of their house. If it's okay with you to just dispel the notion that crumbs are chametz, on this Pesach that falls out on Shabbat, so Erev Pesach falls on Shabbat, Chachamim say, what do you do with the chametz? You ate chametz Friday night for sure, because nobody's eating matzah here Friday night. Shabbat morning, you're for sure eating chametz, I'm sure. And then what do? You have to get rid of your chametz, but you can't burn your chametz. So what are you supposed to do? How do you get rid of chametz? Bitul. So bitul. You eat it outside. Who eats outside? You guys out. Eat it.
Throw it out. Sell it.
Watch. Crumble your challah and throw it everywhere. Yeah, because chametz is only forbidden when it's the size of an olive. But chametz less than the size of an olive is not chametz. You can't eat it, but to have it around your property is not a problem. And so all of the people busy putting aluminum foil in their underwear cabinet in the you wonder what on earth was happening over there. Then they blowtorch. You see the blowtorch? The pyromaniacs. They come around and blowtorching things. It's not so scary, but people get scared. That's why so many months in the dance, they're prepared. They're already on Purim. You feel guilty bringing people Mishloach Manot because they're saying, a month before Pesach, you're going to bring that to my house? A month before Pesach. Chachamim said you should start cleaning your house for Pesach the night before Pesach. In fact, I will tell you that most Jewish people who on the night before Pesach say the blessing and search for their chametz, they are saying God's name in vain. Because if you know that there is no chametz in your home, because you already blowtorch your carpets. So then in that situation, there's no way that you're allowed to say a beracha searching for chametz. So Chachamim meant to look for chametz the night before Pesach and to get rid of it the morning of Pesach. And more than that, nothing. And to change in your diet one very simple thing. Stop eating chametz. Shira, it's a crazy concept. Stop eating chametz. For example, I didn't look at the ingredients of anything here. But aside from the cookies, I don't know what else here is chametz. You can start checking. Hello. You're going to find me? You're going to find me the same stuff in the water bottle that they said is chametz, because the water now is chametz. I heard. But aside from that, there's nothing here chametz. Grow up. Keep celebrating Pesach. It's not so hard. Tashbitu se'or mibatechem. Take the se'or, get rid of it. Now everybody's making sourdough. They have a hard time with the se'or. Se'or is everywhere. But it's not a big deal. And when you start to focus on all the things that people tell you about on Pesach, you could sit at a Pesach Seder and all of a sudden you hear about the frogs, makat tzfardea. And the frog, it's a special kind of frog. When you hit the frog, more frogs, it's like a nightmare of frogs. Imagine you have a roach in your apartment in New York, and you step on the roach and 10 more roaches come out. That's a nightmare of a roach. It's a Hashem Yishmo. Yeah? You come to exterminate the roaches, the whole building is covered in roaches. Like that kind of frog. We got it. The rabbis were trying to tell you the Egyptians didn't like the frogs. We understand. We understand. But that's the whole thing you're telling the kids on Pesach. You start to tell them milkans and midrashim. You know, my Avino was asking me, what is a midrash even? How do you learn it? How do you learn a midrash? The first thing, to learn midrashim, you have to have intelligence. If you don't have intelligence, you cannot learn midrash. Like most things, you can't study without any basic intelligence. But more than that, you have to know how to learn something. So they came home with a midrash that Paro and Moshe were arguing about let my people go. You know the story? Yeah, that part's in the Torah. Let my people go. And what does Paro say? No, no, no. I will not let them go. And he tells them they will not let them go. And then what happens? Moshe, who is how tall? 10 amot tall. How tall is 10 amot? Let's give every amma 18 inches, a foot and a half. Do the math for me. 15 feet, yeah? 15 feet. 15 feet? You ever met somebody 15 feet tall? Even Elchanan, who watches basketball, doesn't see people 15 feet tall. 15 feet tall. Now, how tall was Paro, according to the Midrash?
3 amma? No.
1 amma. What is an amma? Even if you're measuring like the Chazon Ish, yeah? Even if you're like going out of the way, amma. Amma is from here till here. How do I know that amma is from here to here? How do I know?
That's what it means. You know, you've reached.
What? Because that's what the word amma means something, and it means this. Just like a novel concept, the word zayit in Hebrew means an olive, not an ostrich egg. Believe it or not, you might not know, but that's something that people don't know. They have books and charts, and they start measuring their matzot. How much matzah? Like a betza in Hebrew is an egg. It's things that you would never. Shkia. The word shkia. What is shkia? Sunset. What does it mean, sunset? Has the sun set? Has the sun set?
Yes.
What if Rabbeinu Tam said the sun didn't set yet?
Oh, it's still daytime.
According to Rabbeinu Tam.
Yeah.
Or,
Well, because the sun hasn't gone down, it's not dark. It's still daylight, it's just the sun has begun setting.
I see you like Pilpul.
I also like Rabbeinu Tam.
Oh. So 2 things. Okay. It's good. I'm not disrespecting Rabbeinu Tam. All I'm saying is, I have a hard time saying that according to God, Vaikra Elohim la'or yom, v'lachoshech kara layla. God calls light day and darkness night. Even according to Rabbeinu Tam, he would have to concede to God, according to most opinions. Now, here, why am I telling you this? Because the Midrash means something. When you talk about height, you really are talking about a different word. Stature. What is stature?
The respect, like the amount of gravitas. Amen. The gravitas earned from
Shaul HaMelech. When we find Shaul HaMelech, there's something that strikes us about him. What do they write about him? He's a head and shoulders, like your shampoo, he's a head and shoulders above everybody else. Was he really head and shoulders above everybody else? I don't know. But I can tell you that it meant that Shaul HaMelech, when you use the expression in Hebrew, Mishichmo v'mala, you mean this person is a person of exceptional character. So when you say that Moshe Rabbeinu is 10 amot tall, 15 feet tall, and you say that Paro is 1 amma, and my Avinam says, well, Abba, so the one thing I don't understand, why didn't Moshe Rabbeinu just step on Paro, and then we would finish the story? What? It smacked him, but it didn't work. Now what's going to happen? He's going to ask his teacher. What's the teacher going to say? Don't ask questions, or that's a really good question. I will look into it for you. Don't have to look into it. You just have to stop teaching Torah. That's all you have to do. Because you clearly don't understand what you're reading. Chachamim would never tell you Moshe Rabbeinu 15 feet tall, Paro 1 foot. They mean something when they say something. When you start to learn the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim for what it truly is meant to be, then you start to unravel inside of it why our Chachamim spend the whole night talking about Yetziat Mitzrayim. The reason they spent the whole night talking about Yetziat Mitzrayim is because of the relevance of the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim for us until today. The Rabbanit gave a shiur last Thursday night in the writings of the Ramban, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman. He also liked Rabbeinu Tam. So here we have an entire shiur on the idea of Zecher L'Yetziat Mitzrayim. Almost every mitzvah that you do is connected in some way or another to the fact that we left Egypt. It is the foundation of Judaism. Mori Harav, when he would convert someone to Judaism, he would be in Brazil, he would be in Indonesia, he would be in all kinds of places Mori Harav was. And he would set up a bedin. He needed to know two things. Do you believe in the 13 principles of the Rambam? Can you say them to me out loud and tell me that you believe in them? Number two, can you tell me everything that happened from the first day of Sivan until the 6th day of Sivan? Do you know every single detail of the giving of the Torah? Do you know what happened on every single day of the story of Pesach? Do you know Zecher L'Yetziat Mitzrayim and the giving of the Torah? If not, I don't want to make you Jewish. Two things. Everything else didn't matter. Those two things. 13 principles of the Rambam and the dates, times, and occasions surrounding leaving Egypt and receiving the Torah. Tonight, I wanted to take you through an essay of Rabbi Chaim David Halevi, who is not related to me, though I have a very deep affinity to his Torah. An idea that I think is relevant perhaps this year more than any other. And it's because we're still, this many months after October 7th, still talking about wars. Wars that don't seem to end. Victory that seems to not even be able to be defined. And so first and foremost, I dedicated tonight's shiur to the soldiers of the Jewish people. Yishem Adonai Vorach Me'atav Adonai Mi Sheberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov Yosef Moshe Aaron David Shlomo Hu Yivarech Et Chaylei Yisrael העומדים במשמר ארצנו ואלוהינו מגבול הלבנון ועד מדבר מצרים מן הים הגדול עד דבר הרבה ביבשה באוויר ובים ובכלם תלמידיי ובני קהילתנו ייתן אדוני את אויבינו הקמים עלינו וגפים לפניהם הקדוש ברוך הוא ישמור ויציל את חיילינו מכל צרה וצוקה מכל נגע ומחלה וישלח ברכה והצלחה בכל מעשה ידיהם מדבר שונאינו תחתיהם ואתרם בחטא ישועה ואתר ניצחון וגם במה כתוב כי אדוני אלוהיכם ההולך עמכם להילחם לכם עם אביכם להושיע ונאמר אמן. They should go in peace and come back home in peace. B'ezrat Hashem. And the second tonight's shiur was dedicated to a dear friend of mine that I never got to meet, whose askara I missed 2 weeks ago, to Babi's husband and Nechama's father, Rabbi Eliezer Garner, alav shalom. I think and I hope that tonight's shiur he would appreciate also, like some of the other ones he listened to. With your permission, המרחם על כל בריאותיו ויחוס ויחמון וירחם על נפש, רוח ונשמה אשר נפטר בשם טוב מן העולם, רבי אליעזר בן אברהם אבינו. רוח אדוני תנחנו בגן עדן, הוא וכל בני ישראל השוכבים עמו, בכנען הרחמים והסליחות וכן יהי רצון ולומר אמן. נשמה should have עניין גן עדן, בעזרת השם. I'm with you on this page. If you want a PDF version of it, it's on shiviti.org/New York. מעבדות לחירות. Don't get scared of Hebrew. I'm going to read it to you, I promise. היציאה מעבדות לחירות תופסת מקום נכבד מאוד במערכת החשיבה הדתית. I'm starting, so I'm going to tell you we're starting now. It's 9:15. That means we started exactly on time for an 8:30 shiur. Chevra, you have lives, you have families, you have work tomorrow, you have Pesach coming up. I'm here for the night visiting from San Diego. I'll stay here for as late as anybody wants to learn with me. If at some point in time you need to go, please don't feel uncomfortable. You'll go. The rest of it you'll catch on the recording. The learning will stop when we're done learning, but if you need to leave at some point, it's not rude. Please, just know that. Just before you go, if you don't own a copy of the book yet, please walk by the Rabbanit and get a copy of the book that we put out about Mori Harav Yaakov Peretz. If you have a copy already, it's fine. If you don't have a copy, if they run out of copies, I can get more copies to you. But we put out a small book about my rabbi and teacher. It's in the box in the back. The Rabbanit over there. You're more than welcome to get one on your way out. היציאה מעבדות לחירות תופסת מקום נכבד מאוד במערכת החשיבה הדתית ובייחוד בחג הפסח. The whole concept of leaving slavery to freedom, it holds a very significant part in our tradition, particularly around these days of Pesach. ובא לידי ביטוי ברור בסיום החלק הראשון של ההגדה, and it comes out even more clearly at the end of the Haggadah, the end of the first part of the Haggadah, where we say בכל דור ודור, in every generation, חייב אדם לראות את עצמו כאילו הוא יצא ממצרים. A person has to see himself as if he left Egypt. ובקטע שאחריו, and right after that, because we should see ourselves as if we ourselves were slaves in Egypt, we say, לפיכך אנחנו חייבים להודות, להלל למי שעשה לאבותינו ולנו את כל הניסים האלה, הוציאנו מעבדות לחירות וכו'. We have to say, and therefore we are obligated to give thanks and to praise and to the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who did these miracles for our forefathers and for us. So not only is the story of Egypt something so important in terms of history, but it's something very important that we, at every seder, say, we must see ourselves as if we were slaves, though we weren't. And we have to give thanks to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for saving us, even though He didn't. But there's something about this historical story that connects us today, and it's very, very relevant that our Chachamim instituted blessings over it. Peshutam shel davarim hu, the simple answer of the story. Shilmale hotzi Adonai et avotenu mitzrayim. That if HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not take us out of Egypt, as we say in the Haggadah, עדיין אנו ובנינו ובני בנינו משועבדים היינו לפרעה במצרים. We and our children, our grandchildren would all still be slaves in Egypt if we were not freed. אבל בעומק העניין יש כאן רעיון מוסרי גדול ועמוק. But if you really want to look deeply here, there's a very deep idea. It's not just this idea that had we not been freed, we would still be slaves in Egypt. היציאה האמיתית מעבדות לחירות לא הייתה מאורע חד פעמי בהיסטוריה של עם ישראל, אלא תהליך שהולך ומתמשך עד עצם היום הזה בכל דור ודור. לפיכך גם אנחנו צריכים להודות ולהלל על שהוציאנו מעבדות לחירות. There is something not historical that is happening, something that happens to every single one of us in the holiday of Pesach, that we feel that we are obligated to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for freeing us from slavery. עתה נראה כיצד רעיון זה רמוז בתורה, ואולי אף יותר מאשר רמוז. And so I want to explore what idea is found here, and where this idea is found in the Torah in allusion, and maybe even more explicit than just an allusion. היציאה מעבדות לחירות החלה ביום ט"ו בניסן, בעצם היציאה ממצרים. On the 15th day of Nisan, that's when the beginning of our slavery ended. So we started to go into freedom. אך לכאורה, but apparently, לא הושלמה אלא עד אחרי קריעת ים סוף. It didn't really finish until after the passing of the sea. לכאורה למה? Why do I say only seemingly stops there? Rabbi Eliezer is going to share with us an idea. Let the build-up be slow, because the impact will be important. משום שאחרי קריעת ים סוף, because after the splitting of the sea, נתגלה עם ישראל בשעתו הגדולה ביותר מבחינת יציאתו מעבדות חירות. Something incredible happened in the Jewish people's consciousness that they recognized that they left slavery into freedom. כי מיד אחרי קריעת ים סוף, כאשר סיימו לשיר שירת הים, when the Jewish people finished singing the song of the sea, you sing the song of the sea every day? No, I know you read it. I'm asking if you sing it. It's a song.
New tune every day.
Imagine if you read a song. Worse if you mumbled it. I don't care which tune you sing. You can make your own tune if you want. But it's a shirah. In our Kehillat, we have a few different shirat hayam, depending on the occasion. Our standard weekday, אז ישיר משה ובני ישראל את השירה הזאת לאדוני ויאמרו לאמור. Who has time for that on a Tuesday morning? Pesukei Zimah. So skip it. But don't read it. It's a song. You have to sing it. On a holiday, for example, Shabbat, Chodesh we just had. אז ישיר משה ובני ישראל. That's a holiday, אז ישיר. If you go perhaps to a Spanish-Portuguese Kehillat, אז ישיר משה ובני ישראל. You can sing any tune you want. Make up your own, but don't read Shirat Hayam. It's a song. It's a song, and it's a very important song. Something happened to Am Yisrael here. נאמר, ויעשה משה את ישראל מים סוף ויצאו אל מדבר שור. Moshe Rabbeinu takes the Jewish people from the sea to the desert of Shur. על אותו שעה דרש רבי אליעזר במחילתא, רבי אליעזר teaches במחילתא להודיע שבחן של ישראל. To tell the greatness of the Jewish people. שכיוון שאמר להם משה, קומו סעו, when he said get up and go, לא אמרו האחן היוצאים במדבר ואין לנו מחיה בדרך, אלא האמינו והלכו אחר משה. The Jewish people then start asking questions. How are we going to go? Where are we going? What food should we take? What are we packing? They just went. Moshe Rabbeinu told them go, and they went. And that's why it says in the book of Yirmiyahu, Haloch vekarata b'oznei Yerushalayim le'emor. Go and call out in the ears of Yerushalayim and say, there's a beautiful Ashkenazi song about this. Zacharti la chesed ne'oraich, ahavat kelunotayich. I remember for you the kindness of your youth. Lechtech acharai b'midbar be'eretz lo zeruah. You followed me into the desert, in a land that was barren, but you came with me. HaKadosh Baruch Hu recognizes for the Jewish people their greatness. You went after me where nobody else would go. I say this pasuk sometimes to my wife. Zacharti la chesed ahavat kelunotayich. You followed me where nobody else was willing to go. It's not a simple thing. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has gratitude to the Jewish people, whatever that can be in the capacity of a creator. The Jewish people followed him into the desert. תחילה נקדים הסבר ששבח זה לא נאמר לישראל בשעת היציאה ממצרים מרמסס סוכותה משום שהיה מקום להניח שיעשו דרך ארץ פלישתים שמיושבת. This is an important part of why they said this now, because when they were just going through the land of Pelishtim, they knew there was food, they knew there was water, just the question is how much they were going to pay to get it. But when they went into the desert, that's when things are complicated. Because everybody, even the freest people in the world, when they start to get hungry, when they start to get tight with money, life gets very difficult. Because even people who leave slavery to freedom, there is no value to freedom if your basic life necessities you don't have. Ask a person. Ask a person who doesn't know where they're going to get food today. Ask a person who doesn't know where they're going to sleep tomorrow. The words, Lama li chaim, why should I live? You have life, be happy with what you have. Jews like to give stupid speeches. Should give thanks to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for what you do have. Look, you have 2 arms, and you have 2 legs, and you have 1 head. Yeah, but I have nowhere to put my head, and my stomach is hungry, and it's bad enough I have 1. It hurts. There's no point of freedom if I can't take care of myself. But the fact that the Jewish people knew there were no answers, where they were going to get food, where they were going to get drink, what was going to keep them safe, where were they going, but they went anyways. This was a very high level of emunah that the Jewish people had in the creator of the universe. Tehillim, David HaMelech complains about the Jewish people. Familiar chapter of Tehillim, he talks all about the Jewish people leaving Egypt. Miharu shikechu ma'asav lo chiku la'atzato. The Jewish people very quickly they forget good things. There are people that you're their friend for years. You're always doing nice things for them. You raise kids together. One day, I don't know, you forget to say Shabbat Shalom to them when you come to the Beit HaKnesset, and they never talk to you for the rest of their life.
This is a Turkish Beit HaKnesset?
This is a lot of Beit HaKnesset. Miharu, they forget. People forget. They throw out years' worth of relationships because of something small. Maybe for them it wasn't small. By the way, you have to understand that for people, some things are very big, even though objectively they're very small. But for them, they're willing to ruin the whole world because of it. Am Yisrael forgets for HaKadosh Baruch Hu more often than not all of the greatness that He has done for them. Where do you see this? You see the Jews begin to complain. If you look on page 125, the Jewish people complain about Moshe Rabbeinu. V'yalonu kol adat b'nei Yisrael al Moshe v'Aaron b'midbar. All of the Jewish people complain about Moshe and Aaron in the desert. What do you mean all the Jewish people? Is that the storm we were waiting for? Baruch Hashem. So we are complaining at Moshe Rabbeinu for what? What do we say? They tell them, Mi ten motenu b'yad Adonai be'eretz Mitzrayim, b'shiftenu al sir habasar, be'ochlenu lechem nasova. We would have rather died in the land of Egypt, eating the nice food that we had there, living comfortably there. Ki hotzetem otanu al hamidbar hazeh. You took us out, like we didn't want to go. You took us out of this place. Lehamit et kol hakal hazeh bara'av. To kill this whole congregation in hunger. Not you, Chashon. The Jewish people. I once took my kids to SeaWorld. SeaWorld. I'm sure you have equivalents here. And you spend a whole day in SeaWorld, dolphin, shamu, popcorn, cotton candy, ice cream, the whole day. And at the end, as you're about to leave and the park is closed and the lights are dimming and they're rushing you out, that's when the trap happens. They start selling all these toys, all these gimmicks, all these light shows, lightsabers. They bought it on Amazon for $2.50 a piece. They sell it to you for $22.50 a piece. And you see all these kids, I'm sure they're actors, like all these kids are walking out with swords and lights, and you are that cheap Jew who tells your kid, no, we're not buying it here. Yeah, that's you. I could get it on Amazon for cheaper. Nobody wants it from Amazon. I want it now in the parking lot. Yeah, well, that's and then they start to cry and they complain, you're a good for nothing parent, we hate you, da 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 da. And then you say, what do you say? You say, listen, the Jewish people are telling HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you took us all the way here, you bought us everything, and now you might as well just kill us because you didn't buy us a lightsaber. There. That's how it's like. That's what Am Yisrael treats like. It's very childish. But it's not just one Jew or two Jews or half the Jews or most of the Jews. Kol B'nai Yisrael. It's all of the Jews. There's no tzaddikim left. They're complaining? Who's me? Yes.
I think you're being too hard on them.
Why?
When you take a person out of slavery, you haven't freed them from slavery. They went from everything was decided for them, and now they have the responsibility of freedom.
Elke, I'm bringing you a chair because you should teach the shiur. Elke's right. That's the right answer. This is the answer. No, don't be. I'm being serious. You're right. Baruch Hashem. I'm glad that I think like you. But this is it. Look, v'achen kasher lishtacher min ha'avdut. It's really hard to free yourself from slavery. וזאת נבחן מתחילת הפרשה לפני נס קריעת ים סוף. כי הנה ידע הקדוש ברוך הוא שאותו עם ששועבד בידי מצרים אינו מסוגל להילחם. You can see already that HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows that these people, though He freed them physically from Egypt, they're not cut out to fight. Now, before you jump on me, the Mikra does say that the Jewish people left Egypt. You were in my Purim class last year. Chamushim. Chamushim alu b'nei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim. They came armed. I know the Midrash says only a fifth left. That's not what it means though, the Pasuk. The Pasuk means the Jewish people left armed. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Let me just read what he says and then we'll talk about the being armed. HaKadosh Baruch Hu knew that these Jews couldn't fight. ולכן לא ניחם אלוהים דרך ארץ פלשתים שקרובה היא לארץ כנען. כי אמר אלוהים פן ינחם העם בראותם מלחמה ושבו מצרימה. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was careful to avoid taking them near Pelishtim because he knew they would get scared from the prospect of war and they would run back to Egypt. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu knew his people. But you have to know your people. You're a parent, you have to know your children. You're a rabbi, you have to know your community. You're a teacher, you have to know your classroom. You have to know the things that people are scared of, the things that people are happy with, the things that people are comfortable with. You can't do whatever you want and do. That's right. I'm going to help you win. HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows the Jewish people are scared of war. They've been slaves for 210 years. To go to war takes a serious strength, not just physical strength. הנה כי כן, אין לעם היוצא ממצרים הכוח הנפשי לעמוד בקשרי מלחמה, ויעדיף לשוב לעבדותו במצרים. HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows the Jewish people don't have the mental, emotional, spiritual wherewithal to wage war. And if they are forced to fight, they will choose to go back to slavery than to stand up for their freedom. וכבר תמה הראווה. רבנו אברהם בן עזרא. What a special chacham. Rabbi ben Ezra. By the way, if he were alive today, they'd burn his books. They just don't know what he wrote, so they don't burn them. The things that he wrote, Rabbi ben Ezra, he argues with chachamim of the Mishnah, of the Talmud, he has creative license to say whatever he wants, however he wants. By the way, you want to see two chachamim fight? Go look when Rabbi Yitzchak Abarbanel, Don Yitzchak, argues with Rabbi ben Ezra. Those two chachamim go to town with tremendous respect, but also tremendous... Rabbi ben Ezra, he didn't mince words. No, Rabbi ben Ezra, there's a commentary of his I'm thinking about. He quotes the famous Chacham ben Ephraim. Ben Ephraim was a Karaite Chacham. If you've never read Karaite books, you're missing out on something. We don't agree with them in Judaism. But it's an important perspective to have when you learn Torah, to know how other people read this Torah. Ben Ephraim, he writes, this word in the Torah used to have an aleph, but it was missing an aleph, and that's why people got the commentary wrong. Rabbi ben Ezra writes, Chacham ben Ephraim, he says that the word is missing an aleph. I say that he's missing an aleph. And you say, what? Missing an aleph? Ben Ephraim, when you take out the aleph, becomes Ben Parim. the son of the cows. He was insulting him, but the way that Rabbi and Rabbanit was going to insult somebody, it's טוב. רבי אלעזר writes the following, התייצבו ראו את ישועת אדוני, כי אתם לא תעשו מלחמה, רק תראו את ישועת אדוני אשר יעשה לכם היום. HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells the Jews, I think, Avram Fried, Mordechai Medeiman have a song, התייצבו ראו את ישועת אדוני, get ready, you're going to see the salvation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're not going to have to go to war. I'm going to go to war for you. ויש לתמוע, איך יראה מחנה גדול של 600,000 איש מהרודפים אחריהם? How could a group of 600,000 men, plus that woman and children, this huge group of people, be scared of an army that's attacking them? ולמה לא ילחמו על נפשם ועל בניהם? Why would they not stand up and fight for their freedom? התשובה, says Rabbeinu ben Ezra, כי המצרים היו אדונים לישראל. The Egyptians are the former owners of the Jews. וזה הדור היוצא ממצרים למד מנעוריו לסבול עול מצרים ונפשו שפלה. ואיך יוכל אתה להילחם עם אדוניו? He got used to his abuse. The Jewish people got used to being hurt by the Egyptians. Sometimes you see a person, they're suffering tremendously. They don't even complain. How could you not complain? If I were you, but you're not me. I got used to it already. People get used to a lot of things that are not good for them. Am Yisrael got used to being oppressed and downtrodden and persecuted, and because of that, they're very comfortable with it. Look, whenever the Jews start to become strong and brave and courageous, look how many Jews creep out of the woodwork to remind the Jews how embarrassed and ashamed and scared they should be, because it's really, they don't like Jews that are so happy being Jewish. Yeah?
They did complain though, because when Pharaoh apparently either died, depending on which Parish you're reading from there, they said that they cried out, and that's when Hashem finally recognized Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. So they did complain. I mean, that was the...
They complained, but when we knew that if they were going to have to fight for this freedom, they weren't going to do it.
What was the motivation for them to come out of Egypt then?
Seemingly a better life than what was there. But when things get tough, we're going to see, every time things get tough, the Jews threatened Moshe, we're going to go back to Egypt. Every time we took them out, I'm going to go back to Egypt. You save somebody from an abusive spouse, well, I'm going to go back to them. Why are you threatening me to go back to them? That's the worst place ever. No, that's where I felt comfortable. The Jews do this everywhere. They speak a lot, but when it comes to actions, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not convinced they're going to be able to take care of themselves. It's a good point. הלא תראה, כי עמלק בא בעם מועט. Amalek comes with a small group of people. ולולא תפילת משה היה חולש את ישראל. והשם לבדו שהוא עושה גדולות, ולא נתקנו עלילות. סיבב שמתו כולם מיוצא מצרים לזכרים, כן בהם כוח לכם בכנענים, עד שקם דור אחר, דור המדבר, שלא ראו גלות, והייתה להם נפש גבוהה. says רבנו אברהם בן עזרא, HaKadosh Baruch Hu caused for it to happen, that the generation of Jews who left Egypt ultimately die out, and are replaced by a generation of Jews that never saw slavery. And those Jews were gifted, hayta lehem nefesh givoha. They were given a very lofty soul, meaning a soul that was courageous, a soul that wasn't trained from its youth to be downtrodden. When I was in 5th grade, our school took us to have a sleepover at the San Diego Wild Animal Park. Yeah, which was exciting, I guess. At 5th grade, you go to the Wild Animal Park, and they put us between the elephant exhibit and the lion exhibit. Now, I'll tell you, 5th grader, you ask questions. You see the lion exhibit, the fence is not so tall surrounding the lion exhibit. And you're laying there at night saying, I used to be afraid of monsters under my bed. No longer. I'm now afraid of the lion over there. That fence, I could climb over it. And so we asked, and the zookeeper explained that these lions, ever since they're very young, have been raised in this enclosure with this very short fence that leans inward. And when they try to jump, they can't get out over this fence. And as they get older, they just recognize they can't ever get over this fence. And it's just something that they don't ever try again because they can't get over the fence. It's not very reassuring, because what it means is, it means they could get over the fence. Like if there was a lion like me, he might try again, and then boom, we're all dead, right? But it could be. So sometimes there are people, there's nothing you can do, because the stuff that they are carrying with them, it cripples them. And it takes a whole new generation of people who never experienced, you called it trauma, okay, trauma, that can get over it and rise up to defend the Jewish people. In this next paragraph, Chaim David Halevi wants to show that the Jewish people who left Egypt armed, they left armed, but it clearly wasn't the same kind of armor that the Egyptians had. Egyptians come out with chariots and horses and weapons, and even the Midrashim about the wheels of the Egyptians having spikes. The Jews, even if they had some swords, some arrows, it wasn't a real army in the sense of fighting against Egypt. Egypt is a world power with a serious military, and that was a terrifying thought for the Jewish people. But look at the Moreh Nevuchim on page 127. Gam HaRambam b'Moreh Nevuchim. Rabbeinu Rambam writes in Moreh Nevuchim, if you have never studied the Moreh Nevuchim, you have never experienced the beauty of Torah in your life. I will sign on that one. It might ruin all of your Judaism. So everything you thought was happy and fun and good and beautiful, you could say Kaddish, Allah v'shalom. But it will change your life. It will change your life. Rabbeinu HaRambam, he freed Am Yisrael from the shackles of pagan, magical thinking that they were stuck in. And until today, there are still people trying to burn the books of the Rambam because they can't handle that. It's too much. What will I do without my holy water? Without my red strings? Without my, I don't know, you fill in the blank. My blowtorches on Pesach. Ki kmo she'en bateva ha'adam, says Rabbeinu Rambam, just like it's not possible in the nature of a person, shigdal al melechet avdut bechomer u'levenim v'adome lehem, that to be building with bricks and mortar and slavery, v'acheken yichatz yadav, לשעתו מלכלוכם וילחם עם ילידי הענק פתאום כי אין בטבעו. He can't just wash his hands from the mortar and the bricks and the mud and pick up a sword and wage war and free himself. It's not usually how it works. It's not in his nature. וכמו שיהיה מתוכנית אדוני להסב אותם במדבר עד שילמדו גבורה, this was the idea of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to bring them in the desert, to teach them courage. כמו שנודע שהליכה במדבר ומיעוט הנאות הגוף ומרחיצה וכיוצא בהם יולידו הגבורה. Because people who live in harsh conditions, they develop courage. Have you ever seen like a Navy SEAL before? Mm-hmm. Ever seen that? And I'm not telling you it's healthy to go to Navy SEAL training. I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure how much of the DOD is approved by psychologists.
It sucks.
But I can tell you this. It changes a person. When the Israeli soldiers, they do Shavua Sadeh, they're on a whole week, they're not allowed to shower, they can't take off their shoes, they're sleeping in the dirt. I'm not telling you it's something I would be able to do. I'm telling you that it changes a person. My wife, talking about you a lot tonight, Rabbanit. We rented this huge van today. We're a 15-passenger van. Why? Enterprise ran out of 8-passenger minivans. So the next size was a 15-passenger van, which is the funniest thing to try to drive in New York. The drive it is okay, but to park it, that's a whole other story. So we're thinking, why don't we just sleep in here? And all of a sudden, the family split into two, my children and her children. My children already made plans which part of the van they're sleeping in, where they're going to put their bed, where they're going to put their sheets, where they're going to... My children looking around where the nearest hotel is. Rabbanit, it was up to her to go climb a mountain and dig a hole in the dirt and sleep there with a scorpion and wake up in the morning and drink the water out of the river and then jump off a cliff. That would be her dream life. And for me, I'd wait for her at the bottom in the Hilton, in the air conditioning, till she comes down, buy her hot chocolate, we'll go back home. That's my participation in the family adventure. It's for that reason that if you're ever going to get lost in the wilderness, do it with Rabbanit and not with me. Because she's tougher than me in all ways. But that's the way that it is. That a person who's gone through stuff has some kind of courage. והפכם יולידו רך לבב, ונולדו גם כן אנשים שלא הורגלו בשפלות ובעבדות. You finally raised a generation of Jews in the desert that were not used to being stepped on. וכל זה היה במצווה אלוהית על ידי משה רבנו, על פי אדוני יחנו, ועל פי אדוני ייסעו. The Jewish people, וזאת התורה, אשר משה, לפני בני ישראל. You pray with the Turkish people, huh? Continue, those of you who pray in Congregation Kol Israel. Al pi Adonai, biyad Moshe. Yeah, like that. That's a whole different pasuk. How they got stuck together, nobody knows. We just go Torah Tzivanu Moshe. But the whole idea was that everything the Jews did in the desert, every step they took was because HaKadosh Baruch Hu told them to. Meaning that there was a plan. Says the Rambam, the plan was to get rid of a generation of Jews that would be unable to fight for Jewish people against their enemies. We needed to get rid of a generation and build a new one. And that's why you see in the bottom of page 127, the Jews, that first generation, all they could talk about, zachanu et hadaga, et hakishuim. We remember the fish and the food and the vegetables and the fruits, and you think that they were living they were at the Hilton with me. That's what you would think. You think there was some free continental breakfast going on over there. The Jews are talking about Egypt like, what an incredible thing. We loved it there. Even the food was great. We have nothing to eat. We have nothing to drink. By the way, there is a Midrash like that in the Mechita. Look at the bottom. דרשו במחיתה רבי אלעזר המודעי אומר, עבדים היו לישראל למלכים במצרים, יצאו לשוק, נוטלים פת, בשר ודגים וכל דבר, ואין כל בריאה מוחה בידם. Rabbi Eliezer Garner was of the opinion that Jewish people's financial situation in Egypt was incredibly good. They had food, they went to the markets, they bought, they ate, they drank. It was incredible. יוצאים לשדות, נוטלים ענבים, תאנים, רימונים, ואין בריאה מוחה בהם. And the Mechita says the Jews would go to the fields and pick pomegranates and figs and all the fruits, and nobody told them anything. They lived an incredible life in Egypt. That might not be part of a story of Egypt you usually hear. It was really good for the Jews in Egypt. We hear about the bad stuff. You hear about the gezerot. You hear about the horrible things. Always. Like, I also heard in Brooklyn that people got beaten up because they were Jewish. But come on, have you seen the houses some people live in? Have you seen the cars some people drive? Of course it's great here. Egypt was a wonderful place, except for when it wasn't. Am Yisrael has this problem, page 128. אלא שאהבת ישראל למצרים הייתה הרבה יותר מאשר מזונם וכלכלתם. The love the Jews had for Egypt was much greater than just physical. מצרים הייתה באותם ימים מעצמה גדולה ועשירה ובעלת תרבות גבוהה. Egypt at that time was a world superpower. It was an incredible society, financially well society, and it was one that had incredibly high level of intellect. By the way, those of you who are with me on Shabbat, I think Rabbanit, that's only you. The last year and a bit, we've been studying the writings of Rabbi Eliezer Garner together. A chacham that I can say changed my life in learning Torah. Have you heard of Rabbi Eliezer Garner?
I'm reading his book now.
Which one?
I'm reading Israel and Humanity.
Oh, I've been teaching that book now for a year. Every Shabbat, I cry more in happiness.
Do you mind if I add a quote to this last stuff you were
Sure.
saying? I'm reminded of a quote. None are more so hopelessly enslaved than those who believe themselves to be free. Johannes von Goethe.
Very good.
And this is kind of a Faustian deal.
You heard the famous quote? I freed 1,000 slaves, and I could have freed 1,000 more if only they knew they were slaves. Who said? Harriet Tubman. I freed 1,000 slaves. I could have freed more, but they were convinced they weren't slaves. This is a very real problem that exists in the world. Am Yisrael really loved where they were. וזה כנראה גרם לישראל להיות מאוהבים במצרים ובמצריים. וננסה להוכיח זאת. The Jews loved not just Egypt, but the Egyptians as well. They loved to be part of this society. Rabbi Eliezer Garner, who here has learned the writings of Rabbi Eliezer Garner? Aside from you. Also, what did you study from him?
I was recently reading, what's it called, Emily Mikhail.
Oh. Okay, I also read Em Lemikra. The only problem is between you and me is I read it and you understand it. I'm still working on understanding. Rabbi Eliezer Garner was a humanist, a religious humanist beyond belief. It might scare you what I'm going to tell you? At the end of his life, when Rabbi Eliezer Garner retired from being the head dayan of the Bedin of Livorno, Italy, when they burned his books in Syria and they banned his books in Yerushalayim, the rabbis that defended Rabbi Eliezer Garner were the Ben Ish Chai and Rabbi Chaim Palaji. They burned his books in Syria. When he retired, he became chief rabbi of Livorno, Italy, at the age of 21. He retired in the Jewish quarter, and his student, his Talmid Muvhak, Eme Palyer, who was a Catholic Jew. That's how he called himself. Rabbi Eliezer Garner did not let him convert. He wanted to create Catholic Jews. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I will agree to teach you a little bit the writings of Rabbi Eliezer Garner one day. Rabbi Eliezer Garner would wait in the morning with his talit and tefillin. He lived in Rome, in Italy, not in Rome, in Italy. He would wait for the church bells to ring so he could begin his Amidah. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not turn away the tefillot of masters who pray to him. And he didn't want, when he was praying alone at his apartment at home, to pray alone, so he waited for the other people who believed in the creator of the universe to pray to him also, and that's when he said his Amidah. Now, some people might say, I'm never coming back to Shur of Rabbi Yonatan Halevi again in my life. That's because you didn't get it. Rabbi Amozeg is a thinker beyond belief. And he writes that part of the reason we were in Egypt in the first place was to absorb certain ideals of Egypt that Am Yisrael needed. Moshe Rabbeinu spends a tremendous amount of his life learning with his father-in-law Yitro. Part of absorbing not just Egyptian culture, religion, faith. The Kohanim of Egypt are held in very high regard by the early Jews who came there.
There's an actually interesting addendum to this very idea that the David HaMelech, the way he designed the orchestra of the Beit HaMikdash, the orchestra was modeled after the ancient Egyptian music of the temples.
And the Coptic Christians say they maintain those same tunes today.
This idea that we had what to learn in Egypt, not just that we had what to suffer in Egypt, is something very real. I don't want to get stuck here on all of this, but if you look in 128, there's a pasuk the Jewish people tell Moshe Rabbeinu. I want you to count with me the word Mitzrayim. Hamibli en kevarim b'Mitzrayim. Are there no graves in Egypt? Lekachdanu lamut b'midbar, that you took us to die in the desert. Mazot asit alanu lotzianu miMitzrayim. What did you do to take us out of Egypt? Halo zeh hadavar asher dibarnu elecha b'Mitzrayim. This is what we told you in Egypt. לאמור חדל ממנו ונעבדת מצרים כי טוב לנו עבוד את מצרים ממותנו במדבר. How many times?
4.
5. 5 times. By the way, 5 times HaKadosh Baruch Hu says the word Israel. 5 times, a few weeks ago, the Torah says the word Mishkan in one pasuk. 5, the Mechita, also Midrash Rabbah, say that 5 is a special kind of Lashon Chavivut. In general, whenever you repeat a name, Avraham, Avraham, Israel, Israel. Huh? Very good. There's the repetition of names means there's a lot of love in there. Am Yisrael says Mitzrayim, Mitzrayim, Mitzrayim. We already know you're talking about Egypt. Why do you keep saying Egypt? You know when someone falls in love with their girlfriend or their boyfriend, and every time they talk to you, like every third sentence, like me, I talk about my wife, every third sentence they tell you about their girlfriend or their boyfriend, because they're in love. It's really cute. Wait 10 years. But first, in the beginning, they loved Egypt. They loved Mitzrayim. So why was it so hard to leave? I'm going to say pages 129 now to you, a little less than reading these sources. You have a famous law of Eved Ivri. Eved Ivri, we're going to learn it together in Mishpat Tzedek, assuming that we'll ever get deep enough into Mishpat Tzedek. We will. But it'll take time. The whole purpose of Avdut in Judaism, of slavery, is not like what you and I think of slavery. We've spoken about this before. Rather, when is an Eved Ivri born? Why does someone become an Eved Ivri?
They stole from somebody.
Elchanan Halevi. Because they stole from somebody. Elchanan, tell me the story.
Somebody steals from somebody else, so instead of going to some kind of prison, they work off the money as a slave.
So in the United States, you steal from somebody. Not you. Bob steals from Jack. Now Bob, what do they do with Bob? They put him in jail. He cheats on his taxes. They put him in jail. When does Jack get his money back?
No.
Probably not. Probably won't. What happens to Bob when he goes to jail?
He gets fed.
He gets fed. He gets clothed. But what happens to him? He makes more friends that teach him how to steal better than he did before. How many people in prison are repeat offenders? They got all their training on the taxpayer dime in prison. They only had one bad friend before jail. Now they have 100 of them. Even better, what happens to the wife of Bob? What happens to his kids? She becomes a single mother, trying to raise her children without a father. We know what happens in that cycle. And the Torah avoids all of this. The Torah says we don't have time, nor taxpayer dollars, to pay for people who did bad things to get rewarded for it. Rather, Bob, you owe Jack money. Likely the Bedin might rule double, triple, 4 times, 5 times, whatever amount it is. But let's say simple terms. You stole $30,000 from Jack. Okay, Jack has a shoe business. He needs an employee. He pays the employee $30,000 a year. So we're going to get you a job with Jack. You're going to work for him for free. But Jack has to get you a place to live for your wife, for your children. He has to feed you. He has to clothe you. He has to pay your kids' tuition. If you're already Jewish, then there's nothing left at the end of this story. And whatever is left, you pay off to Jack. In this way, Bob becomes friends with Jack. You fix the relationship. Jack has an employee. He starts getting his money back. Bob gets a profession. Hopefully he won't have to steal. Mrs. Bob has her husband stay home with her. The kids are raised with a father. And society was rehabilitated. And what if Jack doesn't want to take Bob because he's afraid he's going to steal more money from him? Good. So the Bedin goes to Ben and says, Binyamin, will you do a deal? Maybe he'll come work with you. And you'll do the same arrangement. The profit will go here and we'll make sure that he works for you, but the money gets paid back to Jack and Shalom on Israel. Why stick somebody in a cage for 15 years? What is that going to do to society? That's the concept of an Eved Ivri. What happens though if Bob is living in Jack's home and he eats his food and he really likes it there? The bed is nice. He gave him his own little ADU in the backyard, his own additional dwelling unit. Is that a thing here? In California, it's a big deal. In California, right? And we are being fed. Our kids' tuition is getting paid for. Life is wonderful. And 6 years come, and the arrangement is supposed to be over. And Bob says, "Ahavti Adoni. I love my master. I don't want to go. I like it here. I like it in Egypt." So what do? We do some really weird process. We take him to the doorpost. We stick a peg in his ear. Midrash says, an ear that heard, you should be slaves to me. Choose to be slaves to somebody else. Put that part of the story aside. In halakha, the Talmud has all kinds of arguments. What happens if he loves his master, but his master doesn't love him back? Could there be a situation like that? Could love be one-sided? Ask a heartbroken person who found out that their love was only one-sided. Many such cases.
Yeah.
There is nothing that hurts more. In that situation, Bob is exempt. If there's a situation where he didn't like to be, but he didn't, all kinds of the Gemara brings all kinds of scenarios in which he's exempt. We learn though, says Rabbi Eliezer Garner, that you can have a situation where love is one directional. And you learn the second thing, that most people will choose comfort of slavery over the challenges of independence any day. Try it. All kinds of conversations. You want to get people to get off of government programming. You want people to work for a living. You want people to leave Kollel to go get a job. Well, whatever situation. I'm not equally talking about the situations. It's much easier. But it's not great. It's not wonderful. It's not what I want. I know, but it's comfortable. I'm really comfortable. The guy is 55 years old, living in his mother's basement. He plays video games all night. Wakes up in the morning, goes to work. He makes $180,000 a year, computer programmer. I know a few of those guys. He's happy living in his mom's basement. Doesn't want to get married, doesn't want to have a life, doesn't want to leave, doesn't want to see the sun. He works from home. In the daytime it's work, in nighttime it's, Call of Duty. It's something, that's his life. Why does he choose that life? Comfort. Usually an addict will tell you they don't want to be an addict. They don't want to be doing the things that hurt themselves, but it's really hard to stop. I'm not putting aside the sickness element. That's for my wife to speak about. The addiction part, I'm not here to talk about that. The thought that I would rather a bad situation that I know than a good situation that I have no clue what it's going to be like. I had a woman call me not so long ago. How I got looped in, I don't know, because I don't know these people. But someone thought it would be a good idea to talk to me. Let's say that both the husband and the wife put their hands on each other. Now in my world, two directions. A man hitting a woman or a woman hitting a man, both of those are reasons to close shop and run away. But when I spoke to her, like, what makes you not run away? So she said she grew up in a family where she was beaten a lot. And she said, you'll never understand what I'm going to tell you, but it feels more comfortable to me. than the thought of not having that constant in my life. And whereas I might not understand it, I'm certain there are people who do. And that's why at that point in time, I shared with her that a rabbi is not the person she needs to be speaking with. But there are professionals that this is their whole job and this is their life and this is what they need to do. But there's a person who says the abuse that I know is preferable to the freedom I don't know. Where am I going to get food from in the desert? Where am I going to get my water from in the desert? We're almost done. Am Yisrael, on page 130. Am Yisrael loves Egypt because Egypt is good. Because the food is good. Because the drinks are amazing. Because society is high-class society. They love it there. And now they're dragged out into the desert. Snakes, scorpions, pillars of fire, clouds, boring food falling out of the sky. They don't like it. It's not what we know. It's not what we're comfortable with. And all they want, take us home. Take me back. On the way here, I put a song for my wife. It's a traditional song about Williamsburg. You know, it's in Yiddish. You know the song? Williamsburg. The White Sox and the beers and the Erev Shabbat and Williamsburg. What does it feel like? You know, Joe Amar has a song. Barcelona, Barcelona. Stupid people write songs about Galut and they like it. Because they love to sing in Yerushalayim and sing about bells, Marshtetele bells. They like to sit in Haifa and talk about, wow, in Meknes it was so amazing over there. That's crazy people. But usually we love where we came from because we're used to it. It doesn't matter. There are crusades and there were Kazakhs and there were pogroms and the Arabs came and murdered us sometimes. But the rest of the time it was amazing. And we are exactly those people. Always, everywhere that we go. By the way, at the bottom of page 130 is a horrible Midrash. A Midrash that says that during Makat Choshech, during the plague of darkness, some of you know Midrashim better than me. Rabbanit told me, she confirmed that when she grew up, they taught her this Midrash. That during the darkness, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made the darkness last so that the Jews
would die.
No. Yeah. The Jews died. There were Jews who died. Yeah, why did they die? Because they didn't want to leave. And therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't want to embarrass them that they would be buried. So he let them die in the dark.
The other one is that they went and took everything from the house.
My son goes to school. They teach them Midrashim the whole day. I learn new things every Shabbat. All kinds of things I never knew. But I'm learning every day. Baruch Hashem. I mean, there were Jewish people that really didn't want to go. That Midrash, v'chamushim alu. The Jewish people left armed. Our rabbi said that only 1/5 of the Jews left because 4/5 wanted to stay there. They didn't want to go. If they had an opportunity, they didn't want to take it. And not because they were bad, and not because they were horrible people, and not because they didn't believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but because they said, listen, we know this place. We like it here. You know, whenever people talk bad about Iran, and there's a lot to talk bad about Iran, I remind them that people that I know still have family who live there. And you say, well, why are there still Jews in Iran? Listen, one day they're going to ask why are there still Jews in the United States. Same story, just different years. The Jews in Iran, because they have family there, because they have businesses there, because they have nice houses there. So there's a, Ayatollah, big deal. Like it's life. What can you do? Somebody that I know became the chief rabbi in Tehran. And I would never take that job. I'm afraid to look at Tehran, let alone to go to Tehran. And to be the chief rabbi who has to get on the radio every year and denounce the state of Israel, we have nothing to do with it, and da-da-da-da. I would never take that job. But guess what? Somebody has to take care of the Jewish people there. And you have to be careful, because over there it's a crazy place. A Jew in New York says something bad, and a Jew in Iran gets hung. There are still people that have a hard time getting out. And so here's where we end. Our rabbis tell us a famous statement. The Torah was given charut al haluchot, engraved on the tablets. By the way, if you ever want to jump down an interesting rabbit hole, when the tablets were engraved, tell me a midrash, famous midrash. Okay, through and through. Through and through.
It was read no matter which way you were on. It was
And no matter which way you could read them, but there's a miracle. What was the miracle?
the inside of the
It's a
Samach.
tesseract. It's a four-dimensional object called a tesseract.
Okay, the middle of the letter Mem, Sofit,
Suspended.
and the middle of the letter Samach, they were both suspended in midair. They were floating. Yeah? Says the Talmud Bavli. Talmud Yerushalmi says no such miracle happened. Rather, the middle of the ayin was floating. The middle of which ayin floats? Have you ever seen an ayin? Ayin. It floats. Which part is the middle? Rather, which handwriting was the tablets? Were the tablets written in? Yosef Baker and Mr. Aaron Oppenheim showed me coins written in Ktav Ivri, Hebrew handwriting that I'm sure most people here don't know how to read.
There was one before that
Also before that. So the Luchot were given in which kind of Hebrew?
Paleo-Hebrew.
But Ktav Ashurit is the only one that has a mem and a samach that float. So was the Torah given in Assyrian writing on Har Sinai? How did that work? And when you say the same Torah that was on Har Sinai, the same Torah you have now, and Isaiah Sofer came and changed the writing of the Torah, then you have to reconcile those two statements.
Could have been mixed, no?
There are many opinions on this topic. But in this particular Midrash, our rabbis say, forget the text. Al tikre charut al haluchot, ela cherut. Don't say charut engraved, say cherut, freed. Ki en lacha ben chorin, because you don't have somebody who's free. Look here on 131, ela misha osek b'Torah. Only a person who involves themselves in Torah. And the rabbis tell us that when the Jewish people left Egypt, they kept saying, Nitena rosh v'nashuva mitzrayma. Let's find a leader who will take us back to Egypt. And our rabbis say in the Midrash here in Tanchuma, B'sha'a shayu Yisrael b'mitzrayim, ma'asu b'Torah u'v'milah v'ayu kulam ovdei avodah zara. That the Jewish people, they hated the Brit Milah. They despised the Torah. They were all idol worshippers. So much so that we know that the angels told HaKadosh Baruch Hu, look at these idol worshippers, you're splitting the sea for them? Who are they talking about? Am Yisrael. We were idol worshippers. At the end of the day, our rabbis seem to think that the Torah has in it the ability to free a person from being a slave. And with this thought, I'm going to end. And perhaps this teaching of En lecha ben chorin, el misha sek b'Torah is an important sentence to talk about, maybe for Shavuot. But for right now, being a slave is not about your body. There are people who are physical slaves. That's true, it exists. Those people, circumstances can change and they'll be free. But what do you do with a person whose shackles are on their soul? Their neshama does not let them. Their mind does not allow them. They're unable to break the cycle that is always plaguing them. The desire to be a Jewish person who's part of a greater society like Egypt, instead of being a Jewish person who's part of a really small tribe of people, to always be wrong when most of the free world thinks that we're crazy, to always stand up against what the people around us say and the values that they teach. It takes a lot of courage. And most people don't have the courage to stand up to the world. It's why the Judaism that we find around us is like American Christmas. It's Coca-Cola and Santa Claus. But nothing about church, nothing about, I don't celebrate Christmas. But Chanukah is the same thing. I'm sure if you went to Beit HaKnesset on Purim in your community, it looked much more like a circus than it did at Beit HaKnesset. It's the downfall of Purim. Purim already became synonymous with clowns. Imagine if someone did that to Yom Kippur. Imagine people told you that getting drunk and dancing on your head is a good thing to do on a holiday. Chas v'shalom. I grew up there too. If you have to get drunk to be happy with the Torah, then just don't go. You skip Simchat Torah. It's like, don't go to your friend's wedding and the only way you could dance is if you get drunk. If that's how much you hate them, then just don't go to the wedding. Save them $250 on a plate. Leave them alone.
More than that.
It's more than that. See, I was married a long time ago. Not so long ago. Here's what I'm telling you. Our rabbis are telling us that the only freedom that a person has is the freedom to think. Because people who are physically free, but they're emotionally tied down, they're mentally stuck. They're spiritually paralyzed. Those people, no matter how much money they have, no matter how wonderful their houses are, no matter how many vacations they take with their children and their families to the Bahamas, wherever people go now. I'm sure there are other places you say more expensive. Places people go. At the end of the day, they're running around looking for freedom and happiness in a place they're never going to find it. Because it's very, very deep inside of them. The purpose of the Torah was to teach a nation that came out of Egypt. It's not enough that your bodies are free. Your minds, your hearts, your souls must be free also. And it may sound like a crazy thing to do, to free yourself by subjugating yourself to another being. That's part of the paradox in this idea. But perhaps if you look at it this way, our rabbis have a Midrash that the Jewish people were not actually slaves to Egyptians. Do you know this Midrash? The Jewish people were slaves only to Paro and to the ruling class of Mitzrayim. But as they related to other Egyptians, they were equal members of society. The subjugation was to a higher power. They were not avadim of avadim. They were avadim of melachim. They were slaves of kings. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us a Torah. And this Torah came to free us. It came to free us from all of the worry and the concern, the fears, the dangers, the craziness that lurks in the human imagination. Can I give you an example, perhaps? We read recently Parashat Parah about the red heifer. If a person comes in contact with a dead body, they have to go burn a cow, a red cow. So much of the Torah has to do with dealing with death. What happens when you experience death? What does it mean to a person? They have to go to the mikveh. Can they go to the Beit HaMikdash? Can they pray? Can they? People have an irrational fear of death. Everybody is going to die. Me too. Maybe you not. But all of us will die. We're terrified to talk about it. We're terrified to plan for it. Do you know how many times I sit with my wife at home and say, after 120 years, what happens to Shiviti? I stay up at night worrying. Not a worry that has no purpose, a worry that has a purpose. So there has to be something done. We have to do something. If you're walking down, what's the name of the street over here?
St. John's.
St. John's? You're walking down, I don't know, maybe St. John's is scary even in the middle of the day. I don't know what kind of street this one is. Give me a nice street in New York. St. John's is fine. I'm sorry, I don't mean to offend the people in the neighborhood. Okay, you're walking down St. John's. It's the middle of the night. And as you're walking across the street, you notice a dead body on the sidewalk. What do?
Call the police.
You call the police.
This has actually happened on Shabbos walk.
No, don't tell me. I don't want to walk with you on Shabbat.
In Manhattan, it happened with me and my Rabbi Maman. We were walking.
Okay, so what happens? What do most people do?
Run away.
They open up the closet in their house. They find a dead body. What do?
Run away.
Call the cops.
They run. They run. They run. You open up the front door of your house. You see a dead body. What do? You scream. You shout. You yell. Most people, he's calling the police. Everybody else is screaming. Someone knocks on your door. They're here to sell you solar panels. They sell solar panels in New York? Not like in California, but here. Nobody says, I'm so scared, and closes the door. The dead body, what can it do to you?
Nothing.
No, but the person who made the body dead might be around.
It died of natural causes.
It can give you tuma.
It can give you tuma. That's why they scream.
That's why I was screaming.
It's an irrational fear of a dead body. But a person who's knocking at your door selling solar panels, they could also kill you. They're alive. They can do a lot of bad things to you. You're walking down the street, some guy's jogging with his AirPods in. That guy could be a serial killer. The dead body can't kill you, can't hurt you. But we have an irrational fear of death. And therefore, so much of the Torah is here to regulate our irrational fears. I mentioned the Moreh Nevuchim earlier. There are people that are scared. They're scared. I used Pesach earlier as an example. But they're scared. What are they scared of? They're scared of an Ayin Hara. They're scared. Why? Somebody put a spell on me. Jimi Hendrix. No? Someone put a spell on me. They're afraid. What's going to happen? What's going to be? This person wanted to get married, but they couldn't get married because once upon a time at a kiddush, they didn't say the right thing to the right person. They broke up with their girlfriend. They're afraid. They're terrified of all kinds of magical things. They're scared. The Torah came to free us from those things. The Torah came to free you from the crazy. Now is Pesach. I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. If I go to somebody's house on Pesach, I will eat their food. Pesach, for me, it's like the rest of the year. People who keep kasher, I trust them the whole year. I trust them here also. If I see, and there's not a joke, somebody's going to laugh, not a joke. If I see aluminum foil on the countertop, I will not eat in their house. I won't eat there. Because I know certainly the food in this house is not kasher Pesach. How do I know? Because I know that this person has no clue what is chametz. They don't know how chametz works. They're not sure how things become chametz. That's why they cover their countertops with aluminum foil. They do it out of an irrational fear of chametz. If they knew how halakha worked, they wouldn't do it. So the fact that they do it tells me that I should be afraid that they don't actually know how chametz works, and because of that, I shouldn't eat here. It may not be the way you think about things, but it's the correct way to think. If a person would know, I'll tell you, I remember, I've said this before, in the years of COVID, so I would give shiurim alone in my Beit HaKnesset. I was there, the only person, the whole there'd be an old lady who would drive her car past the Beit HaKnesset, and she was alone. Maybe she was 90 years old. She was alone in her car. You could see her knuckles and her head, and she had a face mask on, and she had a plastic face cover on, and she had her windows shut, and I remember seeing her, and I said, this poor lady, she's afraid of something that she doesn't know how it works. I'm going to tell you, not a political stance in COVID. My Beit HaKnesset was Baruch Hashem, everything is fine. We are talking about a person who says, I don't know how this works. So even in my car, when I'm alone, I'm going to wear a face covering and a plastic covering and close my windows because I don't understand how this thing works. So I have an irrational fear of it, and therefore I do things that don't make sense. I'm not in a room with other people. I'm not in a hospital bedside of somebody else. I'm not in any close proximity of another human being. But this is what I'm doing because I don't know. There are a lot of people like that. They're afraid of Pesach. They're afraid of Ayin Hara. They're afraid of Halakha. They're afraid of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They're afraid of all kinds of things. The Torah came to free us from those things. B'chol dor v'dor, chayav adam lirot et atzmo, ki'ilu hu yatsa mimitzrayim. You must, every single generation, think about yourself. I also am a slave in my mind. There are also things that I do that don't make sense because I don't know enough, because I did not study enough, because I did not become a ben chorin through the learning of Torah. And there are people who rely on us never thinking, and never asking, and never questioning. It's perhaps my favorite thing about this Bet HaMidrash. My favorite thing here, I always tell people, my favorite part of any given shiur is when somebody learns with me for 2 hours, and they still don't agree with me. Because that means we have a real Bet HaMidrash, where we can come, and we can study together, and we don't have to agree. Ask Benjamin Schofield how many things we don't agree about. There's a few of them. A few. And I'm very happy about those things. Because if I would ever hear some kind of crazy thing like, oh, I don't do it because my rabbi told me not to, I would fire him. Why? It's not normal to think like that. That's not a normal way to live your life. It's not thinking. But people are taught that thinking is a bad thing because they're slaves. Because they're slaves. And you can say slaves to who and slaves to what? I don't know. Someone called me this morning. They heard that this year, Coca-Cola is chametz for Sephardim. Now, I'm not an advocate of drinking Coca-Cola around the year in general, But in general, chametz, it's not. Now, what happened this year? I don't know. They didn't pay the right guy at the kosher mafia to say that it was kosher for Passover. That's what happened over there. But these things happen. 2 years ago, Kirkland, I don't know, they fought with the wrong kosher nostra, and they came out that the Kirkland water is chametz for Pesach. So I insist on baking my matzot with that water. Yeah, because how could you live such a ridiculous reality where your water becomes chametz? Do you know what chametz is? Could water be... yes?
This is B'Shem Rabbi Eliezer Lopez in Tucson.
Oh, should live and be well.
He was giving a share a few years back where he said, kosher agencies care more if your food has mixed dancing than Kadash, a literal Isser B'Derech.
My food has mixed dancing. I like it. You know, Rabbi Yosef is a very dear friend of mine. Hashem should bless it with many long, good, healthy, happy years. At the end of the day, what did I come here to tell you? Pesach is preparation. On Pesach, we acknowledge that I am still a slave. All of us to something different. All of us to some kind of preconceived understanding of Torah, of mitzvot, of life, of Judaism, of ourselves, of our own personal lives. None of us can judge the Jews who left Egypt. Elka said before about trauma, but I'm telling you in general. All of us have our own Yitziat Mitzrayim in us. All of us have this part of us that was freed physically, but not free spiritually. As a Jewish people, as a nation, we make this decision all day long. David HaMelech says, Shir lamalon, Esainai, El Heharim, Me'ayin Yavo Ezri. But if you hung around my Facebook page, none of the Jews look up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu anymore. They're all looking up to Washington, D.C. That's where they look for help. Lo alenu. What do I care? One Achashverosh, another Achashverosh, the next Achashverosh. Don't look ever. Am Yisrael looks at HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's how we're free, like Hebrew National. We answer to a higher authority. That's who we look at. There are people that are slaves, and we came to free ourselves from that slavery. How do we free ourselves from the slavery? That's the next holiday we celebrate together. Shavuot. Shavuot is where it's at. There are people that for them Shavuot is cheesecake and ice cream, and if you went your whole life never eating cheesecake, you didn't lose anything aside from you might live a little bit longer. I like cheesecake, but let's. There's no mitzvah to eat ice cream on. There's no mitzvah to come here, the Ten Commandments. There's a mitzvah in Shavuot of Kabbalat the Torah, to accept upon yourself the Torah, to learn the Torah, to know the Torah. And so I want to give you practical advice. What am I talking about? Today is second. Now, are we third already? Third day of Nisan. Yeah. Third day of Nisan. Gimel Nisan. If you took half an hour every day, 15 minutes to read Tanakh in English, and 15 minutes to read the Rambam's Mishneh Torah in English, every day. On this date next year, you will have finished the entire written Torah and the entire oral Torah. All of it, from A to Z. And then when someone comes and tells you, you know, they sent me an article last year. I think I sent it to you. How do you kosher your teeth for Pesach? Now, I thought it was a joke. Well, then, I promise I thought it was a joke. It was around Purim when they sent it to me, so I figured this is some good guy like sitting in Lakewood writing, a Purim Torah or something. No, this guy was a Rosh Hashiva from Israel who talked about the temperature of hot water you have to gargle in your mouth that lightly will burn your tongue but not enough to damage you, but is hotter than stuff you usually put in your mouth. And if you have ceramic fillings and you're Ashkenazi who cannot kosher ceramic, then you're in trouble.
Rabbis that will not have fillings because of that.
Rabbis.
Yes, will not have fillings.
So a rabbi and a chacham are two different categories of things. Because a rabbi you can be stupid, but a chacham you can be wise and be stupid at the same time. So here, why am I? If you take a year, 1 year, invest in yourself. The next year when someone tells you something ridiculous, you'll know because you can say, I have learned the entire Torah from the beginning until the end. Show me, like my grandfather used to say, show me where it says that. And they can't show you where it says that, not in any authoritative book of Judaism. And then you're free. Because you're no longer shackled to people who decide for you what halakha looks like, what Judaism looks like, what Torah looks like, what mitzvot look like. This is something that everybody could do. And I'm asking you to do it. As members of this Bet Midrash, I'm not going to use the word expect. For me, that's a little harsh. I hope that you'll take me seriously. Want to do it lighter? 1 year do the Tanakh, next year do the Rambam. Take time in your life to own your Judaism so nobody else can tell you what to do. And if we're talking about owning our Judaism, I think that's the part I'm most grateful for about this Bet Midrash. I see a group of people, all who are different. I'm ending where I started. All who certainly believe different things, and all who I'm certain have times they don't agree with everything that I say. But all of us are friends, and all of us are members of this beautiful community, because we know that all of us respect and understand that we are looking for the emet, that we are looking for the truth, and we don't all find the truth in the same place, but together, collectively, we discover that. And so I told you I would end. That's the end of the shiur. That's the end of the shiur. Rabbanit, before people go, I have 2 announcements. Announcement number 1. Can I ask someone to turn off the recording?